It hasn't been that long since we took a look at the Black Shark 4 Pro, and now we have the latest flagship, the Black Shark 5 Pro. And this improves on the previous in ways that we expected it to be, and in ways that we didn't think possible. Now to kind of set the record, no. The Black Shark 4 Pro and the Black Shark 5 Pro didn't release months within each other. In fact, it was just the standard yearly release in China. So in China, the Black Shark 4 Pro was literally released quite a while back, last year even. So now, this year, we get the Black Shark 5 Pro. But for the rest of the global market, we kind of got both phones right around the same time. So yeah. So if you've yet to catch our review of the 4 Pro, definitely do check it out in the cards up above or in the links down below. But for now, for this very video, let's take a look at the latest flagship, the Black Shark 5 Pro. Starting with the design, we can see that it's been totally revamped. We have it here in stellar black, and the main difference you'll notice would definitely be the shifting of the camera module to the corner and the loss of the 3D effect, being replaced by much simpler and elegant lines. The back gets also smooth to the touch and doesn't invite fingerprints, making the phone pretty comfortable to hold despite the physically large size. The rear indicator LED has also been shifted and now more closely resembles a shark eye of sorts. Overall, we would say that it's a handsome design change, and while the overall matrix and digital style of it might not be everyone's cup of tea, the large camera module definitely makes it much more alike to other flagships out there. The only thing that I'm not quite a big fan of is the frame. Unlike the previous 4 Pro, which featured a matte finish, these are now glossy in nature, which means it does garner quite a bit of fingerprints and does also mean the pop-up triggers have the same material as well, though more on that later. Now at this point, there's one thing we definitely want to highlight. Gone is the trusty 3.5mm headphone jack. Now depending on you, it may or may not be a huge issue, but we do feel just a tad disappointed. No longer will I be able to play music games and score high on the leaderboard with the use of true wireless earbuds. But apart from that, you of course still get USB Type-C, dual SIM support with either one's capable of supporting 5G, and a power button that also doubles up as the fingerprint reader on the side, easily accessible with your thumb. Flip to the front, and this is where things didn't really change per se, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. 6.67 inches OLED display with a resolution of 1080 by 2400 in a 20:9 aspect ratio that covers over 111% DCI-P3. It supports HDR10+ and can also get up to 1300 nits in peak brightness. But of course, the most important factor is that it can run up to 144Hz and does support a 720Hz touch sampling rate. Just like before, it's a really awesome display. Resolution is high enough, colors are vibrant, contrast is awesome, and it runs at 144Hz. Browse the web, watch your favorite show, play some games, or just simply use the phone. It looks great and feels great. It also gets plenty bright to use outside in direct sunlight, so you can game for hours on end with no issues. But now we have to talk about the biggest upgrade by far, and we didn't even think it was possible: the speakers. Now for reference, the speakers on the 4 Pro were already really good, and indeed, it was #1 in DxOMark's audio category for smartphones back when it launched. Now it's a mere #2. Well, guess who's the new #1? This, the Black Shark 5 Pro. But the amazing thing about it is that it's not just an incremental upgrade. It's quite the substantial one, and that's also clearly evident with DxOMark. For the 4 Pro scored 81 and the 5 Pro scored 86. To put it simply, this is by far the best speaker system you can find on a smartphone, and the 4 Pro doesn't even come close. We used the Top Gun Maverick trailer as an example, and we can definitely say that this gets so much louder. But not only that, despite the much higher volume, the highs and mids are still really clear and crisp, and to that end, even the soundstage is much wider. Now bass still isn't a strong point for sure, we're still limited by physics after all, but if you're actually someone who wants a little bit of thumb from a smartphone, this can actually do it. But apart from videos and movies, gaming is also where it's at. It's a really great experience when great soundtracks and games like Genshin Impact really shine, letting you listen into the tranquility while just exploring the overworld or get in the rhythm with the constant beat of the battle soundtrack during the heat of battle. It does them all rather brilliantly. Like we've said, it's just really good. The 4 Pro, which was the previous champion, doesn't even come close. So if you have the chance to try it out in a store and have a listen for yourself, I think you'll definitely be pleasantly blown away. But now let's talk about the other major upgrade with the 5 Pro, and it's all under the hood. Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which comes with the Adreno 730 GPU, you can get it with either 8GB of LP DDR5 RAM and 128GB of UFS 3.1 storage, or 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, and will also have a slightly larger battery at 4650 mAh. It will definitely support the same crazy fast 120W charging. With Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, this makes it a proper flagship that really competes with the rest out there and a definite step up from the previous 888. But if you know anything about the new chips from Snapdragon, while they do run much faster, they do also run quite a bit hotter. Well, Black Shark is doing all they can to tame the beast. With the new 5 Pro, there's an updated design to the sandwich liquid cooling system inside it that adds an additional vapor chamber plate that increases the overall dissipation over 5000mm squared. To top that off, there are directly attached copper alloys on the chip as well to further improve thermal performance. With all that, Black Shark does claim that this is probably the one smartphone in the world with the largest cooling assembly to deliver the best possible performance from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. And in practice, we can just say that it really does perform, especially for prolonged gaming sessions. We could easily play a demanding game like Genshin Impact and basically maintain a solid 60 frames per second with all the settings turned up to the maximum. The experience was really enjoyable and arguably the best thus far on an Android smartphone. There was little to no frame drops no matter how intense the battle got, but more importantly, the performance maintained even after 45 minutes of solid gaming or even an hour or more. The chip averages around 45 to 50 degrees Celsius with clock speeds averaging around 1.8 GHz for the most part. But at this point, some of you still wouldn't game on your phone for prolonged periods at a time because it's not just about the heat, but more so about the battery. Well, Black Shark has thought of that too. There's now a bypass option to select when you have the phone plugged in, which allows exactly that, to bypass charging the battery and simply power the phone itself. So with this, not only would it help to reduce the amount of heat buildup, but it would also improve the overall battery life and longevity of the battery itself as well. Definitely a really nice touch. And then we have to talk about these triggers. These pop-up triggers. Flick the slider and they'll simply pop up, and just like before, it's an actual physical and tactile button, which is a definite advantage over most others which utilize capacitive touch sensors instead. The functionality is fully customizable with the use of Shark Space. Simply drag and drop where you want the input to be, and there you go, additional physical controls for your game of choice. If you're playing Genshin, we would highly suggest mapping the L trigger for aiming and the R trigger for normal attack. It makes aiming with both characters so much better. Apart from that, there are other additional add-on controls via the use of Magic Press, where you can again map it to buttons on screen and activate them just by pressing with force anywhere on either the left half or right half of the display. Or Motion Sensing, which is essentially providing yet the same versatility but activates by flicking the entire phone instead in any direction. Endless customizability, that's for sure. This really provides a superior gaming experience and is arguably one of the best on the market right now for the Android smartphone. And yes, to that end, it might even give you an unfair advantage. To note, the battery also gets an upgrade as well. It's a small increase to 4650 mAh, but it will also support the same crazy fast 120W fast charging. So you'll be able to charge it up to 100% from zero in just 15 minutes. Now, it will get quite warm to the touch while charging in this mode, so if you're worried about longevity of the battery, there is a slightly slower even mode where it will charge just a little slower from 0 to 100% in just about 24 minutes. And yes, just like before, that 120W charger is included in the box, so no worries about that. Okay, so we have talked quite a bit about performance, the display and much more, but we have yet to touch on the cameras. So let's talk about the cameras. You now get a 108MP main camera, a 13MP ultra-wide angle, and a 5MP macro camera. As for the front, it's a 20MP selfie. Overall, shots are pretty decent and they look pretty great, especially when you're just sharing your moments on social media. Colors are decent with good white balance, and changing to the 108MP mode does yield quite a bit more detail. You also get access to the usual variety such as portrait mode, night mode and much more, all of which will perform pretty decently. As for video, you'll be able to record up to 4K 60 frames per second and up to 1080p 960 frames per second for some serious slow motion, all of which will yield pretty good results as well given the status of the phone. As for selfies, it's not too bad, though we would say that even with all the settings turned off, there is still some form of beautification at work. Not our fancy, but entirely up to preference. All in all, it's a good upgrade over the previous 4 Pro, and it's certainly a decent set of cameras. It's not going to amaze you, but it wouldn't disappoint either. And of course, lastly, let's talk about price. The Black Shark 5 Pro with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage will retail for about $900 US or about 1100 Singapore dollars. Now there is the version with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, but that's not available in Singapore. If you're in the US, however, that will be available for about 800 US dollars. Now for its asking price, this is honestly quite the value package. Sure, it's still quite a bit of cash, but for that price, you are getting Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Not to mention the pretty great display, the 144Hz, the great cooling system, the triggers, the customizability, all that stuff. And of course, that crazy fast 120-watt charging. For what you're getting, this is possibly the most powerful gaming smartphone that's also the most affordable in its class. Black Shark has certainly achieved a really unique spot with this new flagship. Honestly, we're just really liking it. And despite this being a gaming-centric smartphone, well, we are pretty sure that anyone can really enjoy the advantages that this brings to the table. It's just a solid smartphone through and through. If you have any questions, let us know in the comment section down below. If you'd like to, do check out the affiliate links as well. If you do, thanks for support. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Till the next one. See ya!